Hey everybody, I'm Cory, Ballad, and I'm back again with another video. You know all the good stuff to do. Go ahead and do it. I'm going to just do it at the end. I'm going to get right into the video. I don't know how long my phone is going to last today. So today I'm doing another recap video. This is going to be over the episode of Rock Legends about the Carpenters. So the Carpenters are Richard and Karen Carpenter, and they are brother and sister. And they were born in Connecticut, and then they moved to California when they were children. What else? Their parents would have parties, and they would play the piano to entertain their guests. And Richard was very intrigued by this, and he started to play the piano. And he spent a lot of time as a child playing the piano, just playing the piano in the house. He wouldn't go outside; he'd play the piano. Karen, she would go outside and have friends and stuff like that, but he would focus mainly on being on the piano. So he was very interested in music at a young age. What else? Richard went to college, and he met some musical collaborators that he would collaborate for many years when they became the Carpenters later on. Excuse me, my nose is itching. And then, what else? Yeah, he did that. Karen, she was still in high school during that time, and she started playing the drums in the high school band. They didn't want her to play the drums. They wanted her to play another instrument. I forgot the name of it, the glockenspiel, which I don't know what that is. I think, and she wanted to play the drums. She started playing the drums. So later on down the line, they formed the Richard Carpenter trio, Karen and Richard and another guy. And the other guy, he played the tuba and he played the bass guitar in the band, and they did jazz arrangements then. And this is when Karen, she was playing the drums, but this is when Richard started encouraging her to sing, and she started singing a little bit. The first time that she sang for someone else, they had went to auditions. A band was auditioning for something, and they had asked the Richard Carpenter trio, to help them out and play. And they asked Karen to sing, and then they saw that Karen could sing and that she was Karen Carpenter, and they wanted to sign her to a recording contract. So they did that. She released some songs during that time as a solo artist, and she still was performing with her brother and the other guy in the Richard Carpenter 3. They would go on and do different dates and things like that. They were at a battle of the bands one particular time, and what happened? And that's when they were discovered by the head of RCA, I think it was, and they got a record deal. They recorded an album as the Richard Carpenter Trio, and it turned out that it ended up being shelved. The record label didn't want to release it, and then they dropped the Richard Carpenter 3 from the label. So then they went on to start another group, Spectrum, with extra personnel doing more different types of music and really harmonizing complex harmonies and stuff like that. And that's when Richard and Karen, they started experimenting in the studio. They got to stay in the studio for a long period of time, and they started just recording demos. And this eventually led them to becoming the Carpenters that we know today, as they are the duo. So they're not really the Carpenters. Their name is Carpenters. So that's interesting. I'm still calling them the Carpenters. It's really hard not to say the Carpenters, but their name is just Carpenters. It's hard. I don't know. Even though I know that after watching this, that they're just Carpenters, it's still hard for me not to say the Carpenters because that's their actual last name, and it's not like the group or whatever. Like, they're not Carpenters. Like, I don't know. It's anyway. So the Carpenters, they released their first album, and it didn't sell so well. And they wanted to be the record label wanted to drop them. They had a supporter, the guy who signed them. I think I can't remember his name, but he was in support of them, and he fought for them not to be dropped from the label. And they continued to record. And on their next album, they got a hit, "Close to You." They reworked a song, and it went to #1, and so they were a success after that. And they basically ruled the 70s all the way up to like the end of the 70s. They were really big. Richard, the sound of the Carpenters, they would, Richard, he would arrange, he would produce all the music. So he would rearrange old songs into his style and in a way that would suit Karen Carpenter's voice. Then they had another song, "We've Only Just Begun," and it was a big hit as well. And it became a wedding song, a big wedding song that was used for people to get married throughout the 70s. So, yeah. They were really big. So, they were one of the first music artists to use music videos. And, yeah, they were just really big. They were touring all around the world. They were they kept releasing albums like every single year. And they were all doing well, selling millions. But there was a decline in the middle of the 70s when disco started coming in, so they didn't sell as well. So they tried to rebrand themselves and restructure their brand. So they started doing TV specials during that time, and selling it that way during that time. But they didn't have so much chart success. Meanwhile, Richard, he was suffering from dependency, and he went to rehab. And then Karen, during that time, she recorded a solo album. She was also struggling with anorexia during that time. So she recorded a solo album. Richard came back. The solo album was done. They didn't want it released. He didn't want it released. The record label didn't want it released. So they had it shelved. And they said in the Rock Legends episode that Karen was very devastated by this, and she never recovered, and she started really getting worse and worse, suffering with anorexia. So they made one last album after that. They had a hit song on that album, but that was their last album. Karen, she was, getting worse in her anorexic state, and she had to go and get checked into a hospital for medical help. They tried to put weight on her because she had lost so much weight.